study naturopathic medicine?
So I have a background in kinesiology and really wanted to actually get into physiotherapy. That was sort of what I thought was for sure my path. So I worked hard to try and get in, and I did eventually get in, but in the process I was talking to a friend of mine who was already in naturopathic medicine, and she said, you know, Zain, you should take a look at it and see what you think. So I did a bit of research and I applied for the program, and in applying for the program I got to know a lot more about the principles of naturopathic medicine, and that really drew me. It was a profession that had a really wonderfully large scope, so I could sort of include the sports medicine part of it in naturopathic medicine, which got me really excited. So I sort of decided to do that instead of physiotherapy, mostly because it was a good combination of the therapies I was already interested in and a lot of different Eastern traditions that looked at the balance between the human body and the earth in a way that wasn't really prevalent at the time. So that's sort of why I decided naturopathic medicine.
And got you interested in becoming a resident?
Yeah, that was not an immediate love at first sight thing. But I think, you know, I had some TAs that were really awesome. And the idea actually of being in more of a teaching or a mentorship role was something that really appealed to me. So I've had a lot of wonderful opportunities in the past to do that type of work. And then learning a little bit more about the residency made me realize that that would be a really great next step after actually graduating. So that's sort of why I considered it. It was also a great opportunity to kind of review everything you've learned and to really become proficient and competent. When you have to teach it, it's so different than having to passively learn it. And that was something I was really excited about.
What were you hoping to learn from embarking upon the residency program? Yeah.
I think I was really hoping to sort of, I don't know, I guess in some way become more confident in the profession and in the core values that we embody. And I mean, that's more around practicing and more around delivering content. So I think with the residency, I knew it was going to be a really big challenge because you're now on the other side. You're actually having to interact with students and answer questions and be a source of knowledge, which is really exciting, but definitely a challenge. And I knew that coming in. So I was hoping, to take that away from it, to learn how to be a good teacher in naturopathic medicine and a good scholar within the profession. And that was a different role than what I had obviously as a student. That was sort of the big thing, and beyond that, just sort of hoping to establish collaborations with other practitioners and students in general. It's a really nice opportunity actually to be a resident, because you're sort of in contact with so many different people in the profession. It's nice. Yeah.
And so what were your responsibilities as a resident?
So in your first year, it's a little bit more academic. So the bulk of what you're doing in first year is related to TAing. So you're helping to deliver content for different courses. And it ranges, it can be primary care, it can be Asian med, acupuncture, anything, right? So you're really kind of pulled in strongly in the academic aspect of it. And that's awesome. I mean, it's a lot of fun doing that. And if, because I was interested in the teaching part of it, that was something that was really a lot of fun for me. In your second year, you're doing a little bit more clinical work. And so then you're supervising in the clinic, you're supervising a group of interns, and you're also supervising in a satellite clinic. And you start that actually in your first year. So all along, there's a bit of both academic and clinical. First year is a little bit more TAing, second year is a little bit more clinical, but it's still a nice balance. You also have a research component, and the wonderful thing about that is you sort of have the freedom to decide where you want to go with it and what you want to do. So it kind of tries to tie in three fairly important parts of being a clinician into that residency experience.
When you initially went into it, did you know kind of what you wanted to study for your research project, for that aspect of it?
No, I didn't know. So going into it with the research portion, when I was preparing for my interview for the residency, I came across some interesting content related to the topic that I was presenting on. And I thought that I would sort of go that route, but I change my mind regularly, and you look at the research and you look at the opportunities and you realize, okay, you know what, maybe we need to be a bit more specific. Maybe there's an area here that's lacking some attention. So that's sort of what ended up happening, and that's how I then decided to kind of switch gears.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the main impact you were trying to fulfill? Like a major goal you were hoping to achieve? And how did you do that?
No, that's a great question. I think there were two things that I was really trying to achieve, I think, during the residency program. The first was a really good working relationship with students where the content can be delivered seamlessly or in a way where people are actually engaged and paying attention and actually deriving something from the session. Yeah. And then the second objective was more of a personal one, as I mentioned before, which was to sort of develop a stronger sense of confidence and competency in the areas that we had studied previously. So for my first goal, the way to achieve that, I think, the awesome thing about the residents, I think, is for the most part there is an affinity to towards teaching and trying to make sure that you're engaging people and you're engaging students. So I think to try and make it as relaxed as possible and to make it so that students actually feel interested in the material and comfortable. So I think to try and get them interested, I mean, that's always a challenge, right? But making sure that your presentations are innovative and creative, and you're looking at different learning styles, and you're making sure that there's a visual aspect, there's an auditory aspect, there's a tactile aspect. Making sure that people are getting up and moving around, I think, is important as well. Helps you reset and helps you kind of keep engaged. So I think that's how I tried to do it, and I tried to make sure that I was available outside of the classroom so that if anybody needed a little bit more one-on-one attention, that was always possible. And I think generally speaking, the relationships with students for the most part was really positive, and that was great for me because it kind of it just reignites your willingness and your desire and your motivation to do what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So I think that was how I achieved that goal. The second goal of just developing competency, I think, just came with time. Yeah. And the fact that you end up having to prepare for everything that you do, every presentation you deliver, every lecture that you end up having to be a part of, you have to prepare on your own anyway beforehand. So you end up reviewing the content quite a bit and going over it quite a bit, which is great because it sticks a lot better. And so that a year down the line, you TA one course maybe in your first year, and then you TA it again the second year, it's easier. You remember the content, you understand it, you're better able to answer questions. And so as a practitioner then, you take that knowledge and you take that competency and you apply it to clinical practice, which is pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, how has being a student and teacher of naturopathic medicine affected your life?
Well, it's changed my life, and I think initially I was a little bit resistant. I was the type of person that came into naturopathic medicine not really knowing much about it at all, right? In terms of some of the dietary staples, maybe I'd say, that we would expect in the naturopathic profession. So I didn't really know anything, and my diet was not ideal, I'll say that. Yeah. So I mean, in that sense, I kind of came in it a little bit blindly, and I learned a lot about health, and I learned a lot about diet and lifestyle and the connection between mind and body. Intuitively, you know that it's there, but you don't really necessarily pay as much attention to it, or at least I didn't before getting into the program. So, becoming a student, I think, and then becoming a patient at the RSNC, seeing your own intern, and then going through the program as you're doing that, it was awesome because, you're there as a patient and a student and a potential practitioner. And through that, it changes your life. So I changed my diet. I went on the elimination diet for a month, which I think everybody has done at some point. And that was life-changing, right? Because you realize the impact of food on your health, and you realize how intimately they're connected, and you can change the way that you eat and change the way that you feel so easily, and it's something that you have control over organically, which is just awesome. So in that sense, just from a health perspective, it changed my life because it taught me a lot about my body and about how to make sure that it's healthy and how to respect it. And then also through the program, you do a lot of mental work, and it's because the program and the curriculum prepares you as a clinician to help other people to some degree at least be aware of what it is that they're struggling with internally. So that was interesting, right? It's always a work in progress for yourself when you're looking in, and you're trying to kind of examine your own vulnerabilities and your own insecurities and everything that makes you who you are. So I think, being a naturopathic doctor and also having been a naturopathic student and having been a naturopathic resident, it does change your life because it forces you to grow and learn in ways that you otherwise, I don't think, would have embarked upon. Yeah.
How are you currently involved in the field of naturopathic medicine and health?
How I continue to be involved in the community. I mean, I am practicing, so I am a currently practicing naturopathic doctor. I am practicing abroad at the moment, hoping to eventually come back to Toronto, but that's been really interesting because not only am I a practitioner in another part of the world, but being in another part of the world where naturopathic medicine isn't as perhaps popular or established or known, you end up obviously being an advocate as well for naturopathic medicine. So I'm, often talking to prospective patients about what we do and what the benefits are of naturopathic medicine. I think I'm also, in the community, I'm still involved as well. So I had been involved in a cardiovascular disease screening initiative. So we were just looking at different community members and assessing their risk. And then I was part of the intervention team looking at physical activity and just evaluating the level of physical activity that each person was doing and how we could really increase that. So that's been really nice because you're sort of looking at naturopathic medicine but applying the principles more broadly in a community setting. And I think that also falls under the category of perhaps advocate. But those are some of the ways that I'm still involved with naturopathic medicine. Have been a TA and a supervisor at the Residency and at CCNM for a long time, but given that I'm out of town, I haven't been doing that as much, but still something I'm really passionate about. So hopefully when I come back, I can still be involved in that way as well.
Yeah. What do you feel can be gained from participating in the residency program?
Yeah, there's a lot I think that can be gained from the residency. And it's because of the fact that it's so challenging, I think, that in the end, you get so much out of it. It definitely pushes you, there's no doubt about it, but by the end, I think I can say this, at least for all of the colleagues in my year, that all of us, I think, became a lot more confident in the way that we delivered explanations or even pathophysiology around disease. I mean, you go through it so much in the residency that as a clinician, it empowers you, you feel like you definitely understand, what's going on and, the modalities that you've learned. So a huge tangible benefit is a sense of confidence and competency that you get from the residency. Another really awesome thing is the fact that you get to know so many different practitioners, and there are practitioners that used to be your teachers and used to be your professors and your TAs, and then becoming a resident allows you to have a different relationship with those people, and you get to learn so much from them, right? There are professors and naturopathic doctors that have been around and practicing for 20 years, 30 years, and then when you become a resident, they're your peers, and you get to kind of be in this academic institution, in this academic setting, just exchanging knowledge and exchanging experiences. So that's really awesome because it's a great networking opportunity, I think, in that sense. And you meet a lot of people and you get to learn from a lot of people, which is really great. And then, of course, you have really awesome relationships with students. And I think that's what a lot of the residents come in for. At least that's what I came in for. And it's really awesome to be able to see how you can impact the lives of students, both personally and academically, because you develop relationships. And it's a privilege to be trusted and to allow people to kind of give you the opportunity to guide them. So I think that is really nice. There's a lot of intrinsic fulfillment, I think, that you get as well from the residency program.
What are some challenges that people may face in the residency program?
So I think probably the biggest challenge is around the schedule and the fact that it's so very intense. There are days where you're working 12 hours and it's just TAing multiple courses one after the other. And then in your second year, there are some days potentially where you're doing a clinic shift and then you're TAing after that, or you're TAing in the morning and then you're doing a clinic shift. So that too is about 12 hours. So, the schedule can be demanding in that there's a lot of hours that you're putting in, a lot of hours that you're at the college. But ultimately, if you like what you do, it really shouldn't kind of feel that bad. I think another challenge would be the fact that you are always on all the time in the residency. So it depends on, I think, your personality and the type of person that you are. If you're the type of person that values alone time and values the opportunity to recharge on your own and to kind of do this a little bit, it can be tough because you're always having to do this. You're always on, you're always presenting, you're always answering questions, you're always being approached, you're always having to kind of put on, you know, the facilitator face. And it's an awesome thing to do, but I think it can be draining if your personality is such that you like a bit of your downtime alone. You will still find that within the residency, and you need to make sure that you're balanced, but that can sometimes be tiring. You know, the balance part of it, you know, you have to be true to yourself, I think, and you have to check in with yourself and understand how you're feeling and how you're coping and how you're adjusting. And if you know that there's a problem or you know that there's an issue, well, you need to then make sure that you find ways to balance yourself. Whether that's playing sports, whether that's taking time to just walk around and be at home, you know, you do what you have to do and you find the time to do that. So, I mean, I think balance can be tough, but if you keep true to yourself, you figure out ways to make it work so that you feel good.
Yeah.
So I think another challenge actually about being in the residency program is because of the fact that you're dedicating so many hours to the residency, you're doing TA work, you're doing clinical work, you don't have naturally as much time to be in private practice. And there is some time that's allocated within the program for private practice, but you know, definitely in your first year, the emphasis is more on the residency. So, you know, you have some time that's carved out, but you're not always actually spending the time to build private practice within that allocated time. And the difficulty also is it switches from semester to semester, so the day changes, and that can be tough because you're not able to really develop continuity with patients if you're constantly switching the day that you're in practice. In second year, it becomes easier. You do have a full day that's allocated, so you can really just focus on that day, building it up, and really just making sure that your private practice is starting. So I think in that sense, the second year becomes easier, but private practice in general, when you're in the residency, it's not the same as if you're not in the residency and you're devoting all of your time to private practice. So that's something I think that's worth mentioning. I think most people that embark on the residency still make time for their private practice so that by the end of it, you don't feel like you've missed out too much. But it is something I think that's important to know because it's a reality, I think.
Oh, definitely. Start with students studying absolutely anything.
So what do you mean by that? Is students like not considering naturopathic medicine, just sort of doing an undergrad that's undefined at the moment?
Exactly. Yeah. And then there are some people who they might go in one direction and then actually be rerouted to natural. So either they're thinking about it but they don't even realize,
and the words
not even consider it.
And the words of wisdom are in the context of me as a naturopathic doctor knowing that they may be considering naturopathic medicine, or life advice, or what type of words of wisdom?
I'd say life advice,
Okay.
because when it comes to that whole idea of coming to study naturopathic medicine, that will be addressed in future naturopathic med students.
Okay.
Yeah.
So life advice.
Yeah, just whatever you feel comes to you as just, this is relevant for anybody. This is good to know for anybody.
Yeah. So
it's very open.
Okay, good. I like that. So I would say I think really enjoy the undergraduate years. Hopefully it's a time for you to just relax and discover yourself and enjoy university and enjoy learning and enjoy making new friends and experiencing new things. Hopefully there's a little bit of travel in that as well. But I would say your undergrad years, you look back with fondness and you look back with longing because you remember how awesome those days were and you think, man, I wish I could go back. So while you're living those days, really enjoy it and really embrace every moment, because I think it's a time where your responsibilities are a lot less. It's a time where your real main focus, of course, is on academics, but it's also on discovering who you are as a person and making really meaningful friendships. So it's a really awesome time in your life. I'd say that that's kind of the first piece of advice I would give. The second piece, though, that relates to academics, which I think has to be given, is one that, in that it's important to make sure that you're still focusing on your school and on your marks and on your education. If you know what you want to do, you make sure you take a look at the programs in advance, and you look at the prerequisites and the GPA cutoffs, and you make sure that in your third and in your fourth year you're working towards those objectives that you already have in your mind for your future. Some people, you definitely enjoy undergrad, but if you're not careful, you don't want to waste away those years and then be in your fourth year and not have any options going forward, if that's what you want to do. If you're not looking to do anything beyond undergrad, then or you're looking for a different career path that doesn't require perhaps organic chemistry or biochemistry in fourth year, then it's all good. You just be true to yourself and make sure that there's a nice balance between academics and enjoying life.
I think that's great advice. I would have loved to have that kind of advice in a university. I wasn't, instead of focusing on, I was looking too far forward, so it's good to hear enjoy it and think ahead, of course, but really focus on enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then what words of wisdom do you have for, do I want to start with future or current? We'll go with current, and then we'll see what you have to say for future.
Okay.
Yeah, for current students of naturopathic medicine.
Yeah. So I would say hang in there. In that I at least think back to my experience as a student, and I remember it just feeling like a very long process, right? Because there's so much that's expected of you. But again, ultimately you'll be far better off for everything that you've gone through in the program. By the time you graduate, I assure you that you will feel like you know something. And by the time you graduate and you write NCLEX and you've studied for whatever it is, the amount of time that you have, you will write NCLEX and say, oh my goodness, I am a naturopathic doctor. I know about this. I know about Asian med. I know about homeopathy. I know about primary care. And it's a really awesome moment. So I'd say hang in there. Make sure you stay balanced. Make sure you do things that make you happy and help you manage the stress that I'm sure comes with the program. But I would also say that try and kind of enjoy what you're doing as you're doing it, because you have a really nice opportunity to learn and to get education, which a lot of people definitely around the world don't have that opportunity. And we get to learn about stuff that has to do with energetics and looking at your mind-body connection, and it's so profound that hopefully it can impact you in a positive way as you're learning about it. So try and look at the good and hang in there, because it will come to an end sooner rather than later, and you might look back also on these years with longing and think, yeah, I kind of miss it.
Yeah. And then what are your words of advice for future naturopathic medicine students?
I would just say welcome. I'm glad that naturopathic medicine is something that you're considering and something that you are drawn to. I'd say that make sure that you are ready for a challenge and you're ready for the fact that the program will demand a lot from you. I'd say if you can in advance, make sure that you have coping strategies set up, so I made sure that I was part of a league, for example, so every week I'd be playing volleyball or something that gave me an outlet and made me feel relaxed, and that was a way for me to cope with the program. Make sure that you at some point become a patient at the RSNC so that you can get to know what we do here, what the fourth years do as naturopathic doctors, and you learn firsthand about all the different modalities by being a patient here. So I think that'll be a great coping strategy and a way for you to learn as well. And I'd say going into naturopathic medicine, try to talk to people that have already been through it. So talk to other students that are in years above you, talk to practitioners, talk to your professors. Usually most people are very approachable. So at the end of class, have a conversation and talk to them about their experiences. Ask them how they coped. Ask them what their words of advice are for you as a new student. And I think try to make sure that you're establishing a network of people around you to help support you as you go into the program, I think will be really useful.
Anybody who is considering or might consider the residency program.
For people who are considering the residency program and eventually embark on the residency program, balance obviously is very important, and I think that's come across in a lot of these interviews. But you want to make sure that you understand yourself, and you know what's going to make you happy, and you know what's going to drain you, and you keep track of that as you go through it. So you need to make sure that you're setting yourself up for opportunities to relax and decompress, while still making sure that you have the resilience and the capacity to really push through when you need to, right? Because you're going to need to do a lot of preparation when you're TAing different courses and when you're supervising interns. But I would say also try and enjoy it and check in with yourself, because it's a really cool learning opportunity for yourself. You grow a lot in the residency as well. You thought you stopped growing after the program, but there's still a lot. There's still a lot to be done. So yeah, I'd say just try and make sure that you're staying balanced, and keep your end objectives in mind as well. So if you know that you want to be focusing on a specific area within naturopathic medicine, whether it's pediatrics or oncology, try to make sure that you're connecting with the practitioners at CCNM and around CCNM that are already doing that, and look for opportunities to make sure that you're able to fulfill those objectives in the 2 years that you're here, because you really do have access to a lot of great knowledge bases and a lot of great people that have done cool things, and it'd be a great idea to make sure that you're connecting with them. Yeah.